Glorious Glory Be Resale, and I'm back again to do a what sold on eBay, Poshmark, and Etsy for the weeks of September 29th through October 12th. And it did pick up definitely for these 2 weeks. So let's get started with eBay. And the first thing to sell was this vintage poster of Babe Ruth, and I don't even know the rest, Lou Gehrig. But this was a pretty cool poster. It looks like somebody pencil drew it at one point and then printed it out. So this sold for $25. Oh, it did have some stains on it too, on the bottom. So this sold for $25. The cost to me on it was $1. Next item to sell was this cotton daisy floral shirt, and this sold for $24, and the cost to me on it was $3. Next item to sell was this kind of oversized Donegal Traditions cream Irish fisherman knit pullover sweater. This sold for $59. Cost to me on it was $6.49. $6.99. Next item to sell was this Abercrombie and Fitch white moose logo uh, Henley jersey. This I took an offer of $15, and the cost to me on it was 60 cents. That same person came back and bought another one, offered $15 and for a blue one, and I accepted that offer also. And again, the price to me on it was 60 cents. I had so many of these I picked up at a yard sale last year. I'm kind of it's thinning out now, so I don't have a lot more left, but I had a lot of them. It was a good buy. Next item to sell was this really kind of looked like a fur coat. It was a very nice faux fur from, vintage 60s, 50s, 60s, um, the Sharon store. And this sold, I took an offer of $50, and the cost to me on it was $10.49. Next item to sell was this Abercrombie and Fitch cropped sweatshirt jacket. This I've had for a little while. Somebody sent me an offer. Uh, I think I don't know. It sold for $28, and the cost to me on it was $6.49. Next item to sell was this rare vintage 2-ounce hydrochlorite bottle with the cork, and this sold for $14.84. Cost to me on it was 50 cents. Next item to sell was this Brooks Brotherhood of Carpenters blue trucker hat, Punxsutawney, PA, and this sold for $20. Cost to me on it was 50 cents. Next item to sell was this vintage 1970s black bomber bunny fur jacket, and this sold for $75, and the cost to me on it was $10.49. Next item was this Talbot's multicolor floral cardigan sweater in a 2X. This sold for $25. I'm sorry, $21.25, and the cost to me on it was $3. Next item to sell was this 1940s authentic antique doctor's prescription pads under oddities. Again, these are 1940s, so not usable, obviously. But anyway, these sold for $17.95. Cost to me on it was about 50 cents. Next item to sell was this vintage tulip flower petal reflectors. This sold for $20. Cost to me on it was $1. Next item to sell was this wooden wall cross dark light inlay on the wood, religious cross. This sold for $35 and the cost to me on it was $1. Next item to sell was this Talbot's um, vintage sweater vest, which this I took an offer on this for $15. The cost to me was $3. This really should have had the keywords of I would think of them right. No, dark academia, but it didn't. So anyway, I took an offer of $15. I was happy with that. I had it for a little while. Next item to sell was this vintage brown leather belt with the gold buckle. This sold for $29.75, and the cost to me was $2.99. And if you wouldn't mind, if you could like and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. It makes this worthwhile making these videos. Hopefully they're a help to you. And next thing to sell was this American Bridge 1965 diary. And this had, information about bridges that were built. It was kind of a cool thing. There's a railroad train bridge and, the equipment that they used. So the person was very happy, and then it had maps too. Person was very happy with getting this. It was in good condition. And this sold for $24.65, and the cost to me was $3. I also have a second one of these, which is, I don't know, either 64 or 66. I don't remember if it was before or after this one. Next item to sell over on eBay was this Davies small cooler. This was in very good condition. Didn't really look like it had been used much or at all. And this sold for $49, and the cost to me on it was $3.99. Next item to sell was this loft green corduroy button front tie waist midi dress. This sold for $32. Nope, I'm lying. It sold for $27.20, and the cost to me was $6.49. Next item over at Poshmark was this Sundance Wise Owl sweater, and this sold for $24. The cost to me on it was $6.49. Next item to sell was this Cashmere Charter Club poncho, and this sold for $30. The cost to me on it was $6.49. Next item to sell was this Ralph Lauren flat hunter green sheet, new in package, and this sold for $28. Cost to me was $2.99. Next item to sell was this women's bright and brown leather belt with the large heart buckle, and this sold for $25. Cost to me on it was $2.99. Next item to sell was this Bowden Women's Castleton Green Ava ship dress. And this one I took an offer of $23. Cost to me on it was $6.49. Next item to sell was this Ralph Lauren navy dress, faux wrap dress. And this sold for $20. Cost to me on it was $3. Next item to sell was this pair of Ariat women's brown riding boots, and these sold for $25. Cost to me on them was $5. Next item to sell was this Wednesday Adams collar cuff shift dress, and this one does have the Dark Academia tag on it. This sold for $20. I think this was missing a stone on the cup, but that was kind of minor. This sold for $20. Cost to me on it was $1. Next item to sell was this Vilca Milano pullover sweater with the floral embroidery on the sleeves. This sold for $20. Cost to me on it was $2.50. Next item and last item to sell on Poshmark was this vintage 1960s half zip orange and white dress, size medium, and this sold for $29. Cost to me was $6.49. Now over to Etsy, and the first thing to sell on Etsy was this vintage long skinny wall shelf display with the captain's rail spindle, and this sold for $39. Cost to me on it was $2. Next item to sell was this vintage two-handle footstool, and this I sold for $39. I had put it in another piece of tan leather over that. Very soft, nice tan leather that I put on, but I just couldn't get it stapled in, and I did not want to spend much time on it. So I sold it as is to the next person to finish stapling and getting it screwed back in tightly. But I wouldn't think it would be that hard for somebody to do it, as long as it wasn't me. And this sold for $39. Cost me on it was $4.99. Next item to sell was this three hat front, or four hats, meal organizer and key holder. And this sold for $42, and the cost to me was $2. Next item to sell was this vintage 90s four peg hot wall cutout shelf. This sold for $49, and the cost to me on it was $2. And this same person bought the next shelf, now the hot cutout shelf with just one hot, and this sold for $39, and the cost to me on this one was $1. And the next item to sell was this vintage colonial style wooden shelf rail with the country farmhouse cottagecore look. This sold for $79.95. And this I paid $2 for. Next item to sell was this vintage ceramic 1960s ghosts. And this had a three-color light underneath. Let's see if I can see it here. It had, I don't know, maybe I didn't have a picture of it. It had three different color light bulbs underneath that switched from one color to the next. And this sold for $89. Cost to me was $8. Next item to sell was this set of four salt, pepper, sugar, and creamer Noritake late blue set. This sold for $30 and the cost to me on it was $4. And again, if you wouldn't mind liking and subscribing, I would really appreciate it. It really helps out, and I'm hoping that it makes doing this content worthwhile. Thank you. Next item to sell on Etsy was this. This sold pretty quickly, but it's that time of year. This Harvest Spice pumpkin covered butter dish, and this sold for $35. Cost to me on it was $2. Next item to sell was this KitchenAid 2-quart whistling kettle. This sold for $25. Cost to me on it was $5. Next item to sell was this vintage Santa Christmas stocking, anthropomorphic dog and cat salt and pepper shakers. And these sold for uh, $28. Cost to me on it was 20 cents. Next item to sell was this set of miniature pair of print parrots and cockatiels in gold wood frames. And these sold for $28. And the cost to me on these was $7. Next item to sell, and I believe this is the last one I had of these old light bulbs that I picked up. I picked these up at the antique mall. There was a sale. I think it was $6 for the box of five of them. I broke one, and then I decided to get them listed after I finally broke one. This last one sold for $39, and the cost to me was, I believe, $1.25 for each one. Around that. And the last thing to sell was this little lamp. I picked up this on the 100-mile yard sale route for $4, and I sold it for $29. It did have a couple of cracks in the metal down there. That's kind of why it was lower. But someone should be happy with it. And that is everything that I sold on eBay, Poshmark, and Etsy. And I'm hoping your sales are wonderful. Again, you see that it has picked up some. I've definitely had more than I did in the last video. And hopefully it'll keep picking up in the last quarter. It seems that people are spending money on used things rather than new things, which is great. So I will see you next time and hope your sales are wonderful. Bye.